When we want to lose weight, we normally think of foods we need to stop eating. But adding certain foods to your diet may be as important. I will list these foods in the video, and some of them will be extremely surprising for you. My name is Olga Onoschenko. I'm a PhD. I'm a psychotherapist, nutritionist, and a personal trainer. And this channel is about evidence-based nutrition and psychology knowledge for managing your weight. And before we start the video, before we start discussing these amazing products, you need to know that weight loss, weight management is not about self-torturing and restricting a lot of foods. It's about knowledge, it's about awareness. And when you have good evidence-based information, you're able to lose weight without Ozempic, without suffering, and without gaining weight back. So subscribe to this channel to get more of this information, and let's go. So which foods are we going to talk about? In the previous video we talked about how calorie deficit is important, and that some foods, and that the calorie deficit is when we eat less than we burn. And to eat less, we need to be strategic with our food choices. No foods are inherently fattening or thinning. There are no foods with negative energy. There is no foods that make you immediately fat. Even chocolate is not one of these foods. It's all about how these foods influence our satiety, short-term and long-term, giving us certain amount of energy. In the previous video, I listed foods that can be dangerous for our calorie deficit, and in this video, I will talk about weight loss friendly foods. If we eat them regularly, every day, with every meal, it will be easier to create calorie deficit. First, surprise, surprise, vegetables, especially cruciferous vegetables. Cabbages, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels, they are very filling for very low calorie. If you add such vegetables a little bit to every meal, you will be amazed how this influences your well-being, your appetite. And in addition, they are full of super beneficial micronutrients. Why are they so good? Because they contain a lot of water and a lot of fiber. Fiber digests slowly, keeping us fuller for longer, but also fiber influences our satiety hormones. And water allows us to stretch our stomach so that receptors then send signals to brain, and our brain understands, thankfully, that we are full and it's enough to eat and we can stop. Second, lean proteins. They're super amazing for satiety per calorie. Egg whites, lean cuts of meat, chicken breast, whey protein, moderate fat dairy. I don't say 0%, but some 5% dairy, such as yogurts, cottage cheeses, quarks, and seafood. They deliver high quality protein, strongly triggers satiety hormones, while being relatively low in calories. How much protein should we have per meal? Anywhere between 20 and 40 grams would be optimal. On average, per day, we should aim at 0.9, which is like minimum. The very minimum that will preserve your body from ruining itself. To 1.2 grams of protein per 1 kilogram of your healthy body weight. So if you're overweight, you don't need to multiply by your weight at the moment, multiply by your desired weight. This is very rough numbers. We can be more precise in these numbers. We can rely on your lean mass, we can rely on your activity levels, on the type of your training. It can be individualized more. But for average audience, 1.2 grams is enough. That's brilliant. For example, I weigh 63 kilograms, multiply by 1.2, around 80 grams of protein, 70-80 grams. It means 20-30 grams, for example, per meal, 25-30. It's easy to achieve, it's not too much, and it will help both with health and energy levels and satiety. If sometimes you do not have enough protein per meal, it's not the end of the world. We are not searching perfection when it comes to nutrition, because when it comes to health and weight loss, there are so much more important things than protein, honestly. It's environment, it's pollution, it's stress, it's psychology, it's genetics, but be aware. Third, soups and broth. Vegetable soup, meat broth, if they're not very fatty, they are amazing, because first, they are like warm fluids, are really calming for our nervous system. It can be comfort food without calories, and also it stretches our stomach if it's low calorie liquid. And again, we get more satiated sooner. Fourth, berries. Berries are better than fruits. They are normally higher in fiber and lower in sugar, and they're full of micronutrients. They're amazing in season, they're also good frozen. I love adding frozen raspberries to my smoothies, protein smoothies of course, because they're full of fiber. Strawberries, raspberries, blackberries, blueberries, and other berries. They are filling per calorie, and they're tasty and super healthy. So add berries to your diet if possible. Fifth, moderate fat yogurts and cottage cheeses. As I already said, they should not be 0%, 2%, 5%, maybe a little bit more percent fat, is perfectly fine. We don't want zero fat diet. Also, fat is a satiating factor. Don't forget about that. They provide plenty protein and probiotics if it's live yogurt. So search for yogurts that contain bifidobacteria, lactobacteria. They can help with satiety, the bacteria, and also low-fat dairy can be insulinogenic. If you are not insulin resistant, then eating insulinogenic foods will make you more satiated. Why? Because insulin is a satiety hormone. Now it's getting more exciting. 6. Homemade popcorn without loads of oil. It's high in fiber, it's high in volume, and if you control for amount of fat, it becomes a really healthy snack. So instead of eating shop-bought or cinema-bought popcorn, prepare your own if you like popcorn. And it can be a great substitute for snacks when you watch films. The only thing, I'm not a big advocate of eating when you're watching films. If you need food while watching film, is this film good enough? For example, when you watch David Lynch, you do not need any food. It's just so inappropriate when you watch David Lynch's films. So select your food and your films wisely. 7th, buckwheat and quinoa. They are pseudo grains. They're not real grains. They do not contain gluten. They are higher in fiber, higher in protein than other grains. They are very hard to overeat. If we take couscous, especially processed couscous, which is actually wheat. It's easy to overeat couscous. It's so tasty, it goes so easily in, especially with something fatty like olive oil or fat sauce in meat. It's amazing. But if we take buckwheat and quinoa, they not only taste good, if you cook them well, if they cook them right, they are also contributing to your calorie deficit. Amazing source of carbs. Amazing, probably one of the best. Starchy carbs. 8. Sugar. Surprise, sugar helps us lose weight. How come? As a matter of fact, there is time and place for sugar. For example, before you run a marathon, before your competition, it's very important to have some fast carbs to get glucose in your blood for energy. If you've been stressed, if you experienced an acute stress and you feel like you need sugar, that's what your system needs. That's what your nervous system needs now to recover faster from this acute stress. Other question is, what if it happens every day? Then it may become problematic. And if you have to eat a lot of sugar to satisfy yourself. For me, normally it's enough to have a couple of dates or even chocolate or some ice cream. It will cost me around 200 calories, but this will help me to recover fast. It will satisfy me as compared to if I'm afraid of sugar and I will try to eat something healthy instead and will not be satisfied and will not recover quickly, and in the end will end up having more calories than I would have if I legalize sugar. This often happens to me when, for example, I film videos for YouTube, especially at night, especially when tired. I need some sugar between filming videos, and that's totally fine. It helps me. I don't eat too much. That's just exactly what I need. Or if I have a lot of personal training clients in a cold gym, a cardamom bun, Swedish cardamom bun in my favorite coffee shop really gives me energy, makes me feel good. But if I have this bun when I'm not very hungry, if I was not active physically, that would be too much and I will not feel good. I will feel like there is too much sugar, too much carbs or whatever it is, and that would be unnecessary. So sometimes sugar is necessary, of course, if you do not abuse it and if you do not self-medicate regularly with it. And 9th, you will love it. Coffee may suppress appetite. Some people say that coffee makes them hungrier. This doesn't happen frequently, but some individual differences happen in nutrition. More often than not, coffee suppresses appetite. And do not get me wrong, I'm not here to promote being hungry all the time, hungry diets and unhealthy eating behavior, but sometimes we need to tolerate hunger if we want to be in calorie deficit, because hunger is a signal that we are in calorie deficit, roughly saying. Of course, sometimes our hunger signals are not working well, but more often than not, hunger is good and hunger is therapeutic. And calorie deficit is cure it all. So one of the best things you can do for yourself is to befriend hunger. And I work on it with a lot of clients in psychotherapy sessions. Not being afraid of hunger, being able to tolerate hunger. I'm not talking about being constantly hungry, acutely hungry all the time, but developing that tolerance for feeling like you haven't eaten enough. It's also important for some people, not for everyone, not for everyone. Do not be afraid if you are going to work with me. I'm not going to starve you. That's for sure. Everything with your own consent, depending on your preferences and what makes you happy. So do not run away. And by the way, coffee on empty stomach, there is no problem with it. Coffee in the morning after awakening, no problem with it. Sometimes influencers, non-evidence-based nutritionists say that coffee in the morning is bad because your cortisol is high and caffeine increases cortisol. Yes, morning cortisol is high. Yes, caffeine increases cortisol. But if you drink coffee regularly in the morning, your body becomes adapted and increasing cortisol is nothing meaningful. So relax, wait for your coffee in bed, enjoy. No need to torture yourself if there is like zero evidence for doing this. Of course, if you have problems with your stomach already existing, if you have problems with stress, jitteriness, nervousness, anxiety, and if coffee exacerbates it, especially coffee in the morning or on empty stomach, then of course do not drink coffee on empty stomach or very early in the morning. But if it makes you feel good, and it should, then please go for it. Enjoy. So what's the strategy? Focusing on high water, high fiber, high protein, moderate fat foods, healthy starchy carbs, sugar when needed. Psychological aspect is very important, because if you self-medicate with sugar, running away from your problems, from your emotions, then of course you will be overdoing it with food. It doesn't matter what you eat, what you don't eat. If you are inclined to emotional eating, you will be suffering from that. Calories will be coming from that, unnecessary calories, those you didn't ask for, those you didn't even enjoy. It's a double problem. Not only it prevents you from losing weight, you do not even enjoy them and you feel guilty after, or shame or guilt, or just dissatisfaction with yourself is enough, is bad enough. So if you have problems with sticking to your diet, or saying no to sugar, or relationships with food, you need psychotherapy, because problematic relationships with food and body never come alone. It is always on the surface of deeper problems. It can be relationships with self, like chronic dissatisfaction with yourself. It can be very strong internal critic, unhealthy perfectionism. Unhealthy perfectionism is when you set unrealistic standards and beat yourself up for not meeting these standards. And if they are unrealistic, you will never meet them. So perfectionist and internal critic, they often are the same person. It can be dissatisfaction with relationships, unhappiness in your career, and so on and so on. So if you think you cannot stick to diet, that may be not the problem of willpower or discipline, more often than not. It can just be a symptom of deeper problems, and they need to be solved. And it's better to solve it with a professional. So please apply to working with me. There is a link under this video. And you can join me on Instagram, where I show how I eat and train from the position of caring about my body and myself, from the position of self-compassion. Sometimes I restrict food, sometimes I eat too much chocolate, sometimes I run uphill sprints, which is not easy. Sometimes I skip a training session. And this all can happen, and this all can be okay if you treat yourself good enough. See you soon? Wait, I forgot. Do not play too much. Do not abuse low calorie density foods. I saw so many people getting into habit of stretching their stomach with low calorie dense foods that they get used to feeling constantly full. And once they do not eat low calorie density foods and eat normal calorie density or high calorie density, they still want to stretch their stomach. So by playing with stuffing yourself with vegetables and liquid, you just learn to feel full all the time, and it becomes your default option, and you start being afraid of hunger. And it may mean that you constantly need soothing, because stretched stomach actually sends us a signal that there is enough food, you can relax, you can rest, you can chill. So stretched stomach is a soothing mechanism. So if you are afraid of hunger, if you feel like every meal you need to stuff yourself, then there is something deeper going on. Why do you need self-soothing? Why do you need to fill your stomach up? Why there is a fear of hunger? These are all good questions to ask yourself. Please do not get in this habit of stuffing yourself. And now that's it. See you Bye-bye.